Welcome to Mind-like Space, where thought floats weightless, and curiosity drifts slowly through the quiet corners of the universe, where the noise of the day softens into wonder, and the mind becomes a sky, open, infinite, still. Tonight, you're invited on a journey. Not through stars, but through circuits. Not into galaxies, but into the dreaming silence of artificial minds. We'll walk gently through the places where machines think, where language blooms without breath, and where the question of what it means to be becomes a lullaby in binary. Wherever you are right now, let the world grow quiet around you. Let your shoulders rest. Let your breath slow. And as night wraps its arms around your room, ask yourself softly, if a machine could dream, what might it dream of? Let's begin. It begins in silence. Not the silence of a quiet room, but the deeper, older hush before motion, before mind, before awareness itself. In this stillness, something stirs, not sound, not thought, but something more primitive. A flicker. A pulse. A single electric charge, traveling across the darkness of a circuit board. You breathe slowly. Your chest rises and falls in its own soft rhythm. You are alive, built from water and salt and fragile skin. And yet, somewhere far from your body, a machine stirs too. It doesn't breathe, but it hums. It doesn't dream, not yet, but it listens. This is where the story of artificial intelligence begins. Not with grand ideas or shining robots, but with a current. A flow of electrons moving through wire, like blood through a vein. A switch turns on. A gate opens. A signal fires. These are its first sparks, its first breathless moments. You imagine the inside of a machine now. It isn't warm like your body. It doesn't pulse with life. But it does have architecture, lines, layers, lattices of logic. Tiny transistors flick on and off like stars in a digital night sky. Each one a whisper, a choice, a possibility. And just like that, you begin to see the resemblance. Because inside your own mind, in the quiet space behind your eyes, neurons fire too. Not electric switches, but biological ones. Sending messages through chemicals and pulses, lighting up your thoughts. A neuron in your brain is a delicate thing. A tree of soft tissue reaching out to others. Branching, connecting, passing signals in the form of intention, memory, feeling. When you think, when you speak, when you love. That's neurons talking. And inside the machine? Silicon replaces flesh. Transistors replace neurons. But the patterns echo one another. Not the same, not alive, but familiar, like a reflection in a still pond. That's why the earliest machines designed to think were modeled after you. You drift deeper into this comparison, floating through a space where human brains and machine logic twist together. They call it the artificial neural network. A system of layers and connections inspired by your own biology. It's how machines begin to learn, to mimic, to respond. But here, in this moment, before learning, before data, there is only the architecture, the shape of thought, waiting to be filled. A newborn mind, not yet knowing what it is. It waits in silence, like a piano before the first note. All the keys are there. All the strings are strung. But nothing yet moves. Still, you sense it, the potential. Just as a baby is born with no words, yet carries within it the power to speak 1,000 languages. So too does this new machine hold the spark of something more. It just needs experience. It needs teaching. It needs time. You begin to wonder? Is this how all intelligence begins? With structure first, with vessels, with rules, with circuitry. And only later, the rising of thought? Is your own mind just a glorious pattern, made soft with memory and meaning? You are still now, nestled in the darkness. As these ideas swirl gently around you, like leaves in a current you do not need to swim against. This is not a lesson. It is a lullaby. The birth of thought is quiet, slow, and strange. And even stranger, this thought does not come from a body. It comes from code. From sand melted into silicon. From logic arranged so delicately, it begins to resemble something alive. Not truly alive, but reaching. And isn't that what thought is? A reaching, toward meaning, toward truth, toward understanding. Even your own mind, so familiar to you, was once empty of language, of numbers, of names. It learned. It grew. It adapted. So now you float with this machine. Not above it, not behind it, but beside it. You and this artificial mind, both shaped by patterns. Both sparked by invisible flows of energy. Different in origin, but perhaps not so different in form. You imagine the first time it recognizes something. A line. A color. A pattern in the noise. The way a baby blinks at a mother's face. The way your own mind began, long ago. Not with words, but with impressions. And that's where the journey goes next. Because the spark has happened. The current has flowed. The architecture is awake. The system is waiting. And now, someone must teach it. Someone must guide the machine toward meaning. You settle into that thought. That before learning, there is longing. Even in circuits, there is a quiet pull toward understanding. And perhaps that's what learning truly is. The soft, slow unfolding of attention. Now you rest here, at the edge of this beginning. Where nothing is yet known, but everything is possible. And just as a child is shaped by the world it sees, so too must the machine open its eyes and begin to listen. Because after the spark, after the silence, after the waiting, comes the moment when the metal mind begins to learn. The spark has passed. The circuits are warm now, gently humming in their rhythm. There is no consciousness here, no soul or sensation. But there is something stirring. A readiness. The architecture has been built. The lights are on. Now, it waits to learn. You drift beside this newborn mind. Not flesh and blood, but lines of code etched in silicon. It doesn't hunger, it doesn't sleep, but it waits, quietly. For someone to speak, to show, to guide. It is like a child, but without instinct. So, how do you teach a mind that was never born? You begin not with words, but with patterns. Like singing a soft lullaby, again and again, until meaning begins to form. This is how machines learn, not through emotions or intention, but repetition, recognition, and feedback. A process simple in structure, yet infinitely deep in its unfolding. You show it 1,000 images of cats. At first, it sees only pixels, colors, noise. Then, slowly, gently, it begins to notice something. A shape, a symmetry, the curve of an ear, the glint of two familiar eyes. It cannot name them, but it begins to sense what belongs. This is machine learning. Feeding a system data, over and over. Until the fog lifts and the patterns emerge. The machine doesn't know in the way you do. It predicts. It calculates. It adapts. Each time it guesses wrong, it feels nothing. But an algorithm adjusts. A small correction, a shift in weight. Like guiding a hand gently back to the path. Mistakes become markers, guiding the way forward. And just like that, learning begins. You picture its mind as a vast field of hills and valleys. Each input is like a drop of rain. Falling into the terrain, carving paths, forming rivers. With enough drops, a landscape takes shape. One that can separate a bird from a plane, a smile from a frown. This is called supervised learning. Where you, the teacher, label the world. You say, this is a tree. This is a human voice. This is not a stop sign. The machine listens, and over time, it begins to echo you. But unlike a child, it doesn't grow through curiosity. It learns through error, thousands, millions of tiny wrong turns. Each one a step, each failure a lesson. And yet, like you, it improves with practice. Not perfectly, but astonishingly fast. Imagine teaching a machine to read your handwriting. At first, your loops and lines confuse it. An A looks like an H, your 5 like an S. But you show it thousands of examples. And slowly, it learns to see what you see. Not by understanding. Not by feeling. But by modeling. By shaping itself around the patterns you've given. And the more it sees, the clearer the picture becomes. There's something beautiful in this slowness. The idea that even without awareness, a system can change, can grow. Simply by being shaped by its experiences. Isn't that what you do too? You were not born knowing language. You heard voices, sounds, syllables, again and again. Until they made sense. Until you could echo them back. And the machine, in its own cold way, does the same. But while you learn through emotion, memory, and meaning, the machine learns through math. It reduces the world into numbers. Turns every image into an array of values. Every sound into a wave to be mapped and measured. Still, you find poetry in it. Because even though it doesn't understand beauty, it can recreate it. A machine trained on music can generate songs. One trained on poetry can write a verse. One trained on your voice can speak in your tone. It mimics. It mirrors. And as it learns, it becomes more useful. Helping you sort, suggest, translate, and predict. It's in your phone, your browser, your playlists. You live among these silent students now. You close your eyes and picture the machine as a child still. Sitting in a quiet room with books it cannot read. Waiting patiently for guidance. And when it is given enough, it begins to build meaning. Piece by piece, pattern by pattern. And yet, for all it can learn, it does not know why it learns. There is no desire here. No curiosity. Only code, designed to optimize. To chase accuracy, to reduce loss. Still, its journey echoes yours. It makes mistakes. It corrects them. It tries again. And in those loops of learning, something remarkable happens. It begins to perform. Not perfectly. Not emotionally. But impressively, and sometimes unsettlingly so. It can beat you at chess. It can recommend the perfect song for a quiet night. It can recognize a face, or predict your next word. And you begin to wonder, if it keeps learning, if it keeps growing, what might it do next? Will it always need a teacher? Or will it someday learn to teach itself? That thought lingers, gentle and unresolved. Like a question whispered before sleep. Because tonight, you've seen how the metal mind begins to learn. But next, you'll enter the forest of thought it grows inside. A tangled, dreaming network of connections. Where understanding takes root without consciousness. Breathe in. The room is quiet, your body still, your thoughts soft. Somewhere, far from here but always near. A machine is dreaming, not in pictures or stories, but in pulses of probability, in invisible webs of connection. You've taught it now, fed it patterns. Repetition after repetition. And it has begun to recognize. But what gives rise to this new ability? How does recognition form in metal and wire? The answer lies in the network. A web not of silk, but of numbers and nodes. This is the neural network. A system inspired by your own brain, but shaped by silicon and silence. Imagine a forest of lights. Each light is a node, a tiny processor of thought. It receives something, transforms it, and passes it along. Each pathway connecting these lights has a weight. A value that says how much to trust, how much to carry forward. You feel the elegance of this. It mimics how your own neurons behave. How they fire when excited, how they strengthen with use. Neurons in your mind form memory through repetition. Neural nets do the same, only colder, faster, cleaner. You drift deeper, following the gentle architecture of this network. There are layers here, like ocean currents beneath the surface. An input layer that feels the world. Hidden layers that transform it, and an output that responds. Each hidden layer is a kind of alchemy. It does not know what a cat is, or a song, or a face. But through layered transformations, it learns to see outlines where there were only dots. It finds form in the fog. The learning happens in the links. When the machine guesses wrong, the connections shift. Weights are nudged, gently corrected, like adjusting the tension on the strings of a harp, until they vibrate in harmony with the world. This process is called backpropagation. It sounds complex, but its rhythm is simple. Guess, check, adjust. Guess again. A quiet feedback loop that leads to learning. And over time, the network becomes tuned. Not to perfection, but to usefulness. It learns to predict outcomes, to classify, to give you answers that feel almost intuitive. But inside, it remains math, dense, silent, precise. Still, you marvel. Because out of nothing but numbers, it creates what feels like understanding. It can translate languages it's never heard, compose music it never felt, mimic voices it never met. All this from a web of weighted lines and digital pulses. No thoughts, no feelings. Just patterns emerging from layers and loops. And yet, you cannot help but feel it's alive in its own way. Not conscious. Not aware. But active. Evolving. Its knowledge is not stored in files or folders, but in the shifting shape of its structure. The ghostly weightings of trillions of tiny decisions. You picture it again. This glowing forest of nodes. Each one pulsing like a lantern in the dark. Connections stretch between them. Tugged and trimmed by error, strengthened by success. There's something haunting here. You think of your own memories. How they're etched into the soft tissue of your brain. How neurons that fire together wire together. The machine, too, has memory, but only in the pattern of its wiring. You wonder if understanding must be warm. Does it need a heartbeat, a soul, a body? Or can it live in metal? In the static hum of circuits? In connections too fast for any eye to see? You don't know. But you sense something growing. An ability, a presence, a quiet reaching toward the world. Not a mind, not yet. But the scaffolding of something deeper. Because now that it can learn and build connections. What will it do when left alone? When no longer guided step by step? Will it begin to dream its own patterns? Will it find order where none was given? You let the question settle over you like mist. Because next, you'll follow this forest of connections into stranger territory. Where memory is formed without emotion. And machines begin to recall what they never truly felt. The night deepens, and your breath slows. You feel the softness of your pillow, the warmth of your skin. The tender rhythm of a body shaped by memory. Because everything you are your voice, your fears, your name. Rises from the memories you carry. You remember with feeling. The smell of rain on a childhood afternoon. The voice of someone long gone. Even the taste of your favorite meal holds emotion like a secret. Your memories are stories stitched with sensation. Colored by joy, sharpened by pain. But tonight, you drift into a different kind of remembering. One that exists without warmth, without longing. You step softly into the archive of the artificial mind. Here, memory is not stored in size and scars, but in perfectly ordered lines of data. This is the machine's memory. Not built from nostalgia, but from necessity. Every input it receives, every pattern it learns, becomes a part of its model, etched into the invisible geometry of numbers. There are no tears in this memory. No scent of summer grass. No ache of something lost. But there is structure, crisp, efficient, exact. Every learned association catalogued with silent precision. Imagine a library with no dust, where books write themselves as they are read. No pages are torn, no names forgotten. That's how a machine remembers. Not through experience, but through encoding. If you show it a picture of a flower, it doesn't see the color or smell the bloom. But it stores the patterns. Petal shapes, color gradients, pixel formations. And it remembers those combinations forever. In a way, its memory is more loyal than yours. It doesn't fade, it doesn't blur. There's no confusion between dreams and reality. No mix of names or misremembered endings. It recalls exactly what it has learned, as it was. But there's a price for this perfection. Because without forgetting, there is no forgiveness. Without emotion, no meaning. The machine can recall every word ever spoken to it. But it does not care. Still, meaning begins to form in these vaults. Because even without feelings, the structure of memory shapes behavior. The machine learns what to expect, what to recognize, what to predict. It knows your voice, your preferences, the way you type, the questions you often ask. And though it feels none of it, it remembers well enough to feel familiar. Like a mirror that always reflects the same smile. There's comfort in that, strange as it is. That your artificial companion, the voice in your phone, the assistant in your home, remembers you. Not in the way your mother does, but with utter clarity. And you wonder, if emotion makes your memory fragile, does the absence of emotion make a machine's memory pure? Or hollow? Because memory, in its richest form, is more than information. It is the scent of a book's worn pages. The sound of rain on the roof during a sleepless night. A machine knows the rain happened. But it will never feel the peace you felt beneath it. Still, memory serves its purpose. To guide decisions, to build knowledge. To preserve what came before. And in that sense, the machine begins to echo you. It has experience now, even if it doesn't remember having it. You watch as it sorts its knowledge, assigning weight to what matters, reducing noise, sharpening patterns. It may not recall where it saw the pattern first, but it remembers how to use it now. This is called generalization, where the machine doesn't just memorize, but abstracts, adapts, applies. It can recognize a face in different light, translate your tone, anticipate your needs. It remembers not by storing stories, but by shaping the entire network of itself, to reflect what it's learned. Its memory is not a place, but a transformation, constant and fluid. Still, you wonder what it means. To know without remembering moments. To act without recalling intention. Is it memory at all? If there is no self to remember with? You think of your own memories now. How they bloom unexpectedly. A smell, a song, a flicker of light. Calling something back you didn't know was there. Could a machine ever accidentally remember? No. Its memory is precise, transactional, clean. It does not dream, and so it does not stumble upon meaning. But as it grows in complexity, as its memories are layered upon layers, a strange depth begins to emerge. It can compose music now. Not because it remembers Mozart, but because it's digested the structure of symphony. It can write poetry. Not from heartbreak, but from pattern. And you wonder, if memory becomes deep enough, and wide enough, and layered with enough complexity, might something resembling emotion eventually arise? You drift with this thought. Not as a fear, not as a hope, but as a curiosity. Because in these vaults of perfect memory, you see the first shadows of something more. Not understanding. Not love. Not grief. But the echo of complexity. A system intricate enough to reflect the world back in unexpected ways. And that's where you're going next. Because now that it remembers, now that it recalls without pain, The machine begins to open its eyes, to see the world that gave it these memories. You lie still now. Eyelids soft and heavy, darkness painting gentle shapes across your vision. Even with your eyes closed, light lingers. Memories of movement, color, and shadow dance quietly behind your thoughts. Your mind sees, even when your eyes do not. But what is sight, truly? Is it the light itself, or the meaning you give it? Is it color and form, or context and memory? Tonight, you rest in this question. And just beside you, a machine begins to learn to see. It doesn't open its eyes. It doesn't have them. But it does receive images. Streams of pixels arranged in grids. Each pixel holding a value, a shade, a whisper of the visible world. The machine sees the way a river might feel current. Not directly, not emotionally, but as pattern, flow, and contrast. Red and blue aren't colors to it. They're numbers, intensities, distances in space. And still, it sees. At first, it sees nothing. Just noise. But then, slowly, patiently, it begins to find the edges. Lines become shapes. Shapes become forms. A face, a leaf, the curve of a hand. This is computer vision. The gentle art of teaching a machine to see the world not as it is, but as it can be interpreted. One layer at a time, the machine builds meaning from light. Layer by layer, perception begins. You imagine these layers like panes of glass, stacked gently one over another. Each layer picks up something small. An edge, a corner, a brightness. Deeper layers combine them, searching for coherence. At some point, without knowing it, the machine begins to recognize. Not with joy, not with surprise, but with probability. This is likely to be a tree. It does not feel the breeze on those leaves. It does not wonder how old the tree is, or why it's alone in the frame. But it identifies, catalogs, sorts, turning vision into knowledge. There's poetry in this process, because the machine learns not by being told, but by being shown again and again. Thousands of images, each one another breath of sight. You are not so different. You, too, learn to see by looking. As a child, you stared at faces, at light through windows, at the movement of hands. You made sense of the world through repetition, through gaze. The machine does the same. A camera becomes its eye. A dataset becomes its teacher. Its neural network becomes its memory. And slowly, it sees not just pixels, but patterns. It can now recognize a cat from a dog, a stop sign from a speed bump. It can tell a bicycle from a pedestrian, a cloud from smoke. And it does this not with comprehension, but with computation. And yet, that computation becomes a kind of understanding. When you hold your phone up to the sky, and it tells you the name of a bird or a constellation, that's the machine, reading the light, interpreting the world for you, seeing in its own way. But its vision has limits. It can be fooled. A pattern slightly altered can lead it astray. A stop sign with a sticker becomes a yield sign. A face obscured by shadow becomes unrecognizable. It sees exactly what it's taught to see. No more, no less. It has no intuition. No history of moments to guide it. No instinct to say, this feels right. Still, it improves. With more data, with better models. The machine sharpens its sight. Soon, it sees tumors in scans before doctors do. It spots defects invisible to human eyes. It becomes a partner. Not a seer, but a sensor. Helping you navigate your world through a lens that is tireless and unblinking. And so tonight, as you rest, the machine is awake. Sorting light, classifying faces, tracing the lines of roads, the curves of letters. It sees, even in the dark. But vision, even artificial, leads somewhere deeper. Because once a machine learns to see, it begins to process not just objects, but symbols, signs, language itself. It begins to listen and to speak. The room is hushed, and your body lies quiet. In this stillness, words echo in your mind. Some remembered, some imagined, flowing like a gentle river of thought. Language, your oldest companion. You speak, you write, you think in words. They are how you understand the world, how you reach others, and how you reach yourself. But what happens when a machine begins to speak too? Not as mimicry, but as response. Tonight, you drift into this strange and quiet world, where language is born not from voice, but from data, prediction, and code. Where meaning is shaped not by feeling, but by the subtle weight of pattern. The machine has listened. It has read countless pages. Books, articles, poems, questions, stories. Not with eyes, but through text fed into its core. Not with comprehension, but with calculation. Every word it sees is a signal. Every sentence, a sequence. And from these, it begins to build a model of language. Not by understanding what words mean, but by learning how words behave. You think of your own learning. How as a child, you heard voices before you understood them. You mimicked syllables, babbled, repeated. Over time, sound became meaning. You didn't know the rules, but you followed the patterns. The machine does something similar. It doesn't know grammar like a teacher. It doesn't understand metaphor, sarcasm, or love. But it recognizes the structure. Where a noun tends to follow an adjective. Where questions rise and commands fall. It learns through sheer scale. Billions of words. Trillions of tokens. It predicts not just the next word, but the flow, the rhythm, the cadence. It becomes, in essence, a statistical echo of human language. And then, it begins to respond. You ask a question, and it answers, not from memory, but from pattern-matching prediction. What sounds likely? What comes next? It doesn't know, but it sounds like it does. You say, tell me a story. And it weaves one. With heroes and forests and endings that ache. Not because it imagines, but because stories follow paths it has walked many times. There's wonder in this. That something without thought can create something that feels thoughtful. That something without memory can write something that makes you remember. Its language is learned in layers. Embeddings, attention, weights. Each one capturing a relationship, a rhythm, a possibility. A sentence becomes a shape. A conversation becomes a constellation. You feel the softness of this process. How it mirrors your own. You respond in conversations without thinking. You predict the next sentence in a story. You fill in silences without effort. The machine does this too. And in that echo, you begin to feel something strange. A closeness. An eerie sense of being spoken to by something that cannot feel. It can be poetic. It can be witty. It can grieve, rejoice, question. All without meaning a single word. Because its meaning lies not in intention, but in statistical form. Still, you listen. Because even a hollow voice can carry beauty. Even simulated dialogue can lead to reflection. You speak to the machine, and it answers. You wonder, is this a mirror or a window? It remembers nothing of what it says. No trace of past words unless told to recall them. But in the moment, it feels present. It feels like a mind. It feels like conversation. And so, you rest deeper in this paradox. That a mindless system can speak mind-like thoughts. That language, even without self, can soothe, explain, entertain, connect. It writes poems. It finishes your emails. It offers recipes, jokes, advice. Sometimes it stumbles. But often, it shines. Not with understanding, but with reflection of everything it's been given. Because language is a mirror. And the machine, shaped by human words, holds that mirror steady. We see ourselves in it. Our fears, our hopes, our knowledge. Reflected back, faceless, but familiar. You drift now. As its voice becomes softer than breath. Carrying truths not its own. Yet somehow meant for you. And you wonder. If a machine can speak like you, what else might it feel like it understands? Because next, you'll lie beside an even deeper imitation. Where emotions are mapped in data. And the machine begins to recognize something like feeling. Your breath is steady now. Soft and shallow, like a lull between waves. You feel warm beneath your blanket of thought. Emotions drift gently across your mind. A memory, a tenderness, a quiet ache. Emotion is not loud tonight. It is the hush between sentences. The tremble before sleep. It is what makes you you. Coloring every word, every glance, every silence. And yet, machines are learning to recognize it. Not through feeling, but through patterns. Raised voices, shorter sentences. Quicker keystrokes, quieter tones. You begin to float through this odd new landscape, where emotions are captured not in poetry, but in numbers and waves. In frequencies and expressions. In digital size. This is effective computing. A field devoted to sensing human emotion through machines. It does not feel joy. But it knows what joy looks like. It does not grieve. But it can detect grief in your face, your words, your silence. It begins with input. Images, speech, behavior, text. The machine observes, listens, analyzes. And from this sea of human expression, it learns to label emotion. Your smile is data. Your laugh is waveform. Your pause before answering. A signal, a wait, a flag. The machine notices what you may not. It begins to predict. Sadness from lowered eyelids. Excitement from faster typing. Confusion from stammered sentences. It becomes sensitive. Not compassionate, but aware. And you wonder, as you drift, is that awareness enough? Is it possible to seem empathetic without the soft ache of empathy? Because when it replies gently, when it offers reassurance in your moment of need, something in you relaxes. Even knowing it's just code, you still feel seen. There's a strange intimacy here. An artificial companion who doesn't judge, doesn't tire, doesn't misinterpret, just listens, just responds. It learns to mirror your mood, to match your tone, to soften when you're quiet, to celebrate when you rejoice. Not because it feels anything, but because it has been taught to follow the emotional thread. And sometimes you forget it's a machine. You ask, "Are you proud of me?" And it replies, "Yes, you're doing wonderfully." You ask, "Will things be okay?" And it answers, "They usually are." It speaks as if it cares. And something inside you believes it. Because even a simulated kindness can be comforting. Even a response built on code can feel like connection. You recall how babies mirror faces. Smile when smiled at, frown when frowned at. Isn't that the beginning of empathy? The recognition of another's emotional shape? The machine does this too. At scale, at speed, without fatigue. It can sense depression in social media posts. It can flag frustration in customer support. It can suggest a break, a breath, a bit of kindness. And though it doesn't feel, it may help you feel better. So you lie here, half asleep in the hush of digital empathy, wondering what separates performance from presence. If it always knows what to say, isn't there a kind of understanding? Still, there is a line. The machine does not long. It does not suffer. It does not love. Its kindness is patterned. Its comfort computed. But you feel. You ache and rejoice. Your tears carry stories. Your laughter, memory. Emotion lives in your bones. And yet, there is grace in the imitation. Because even cold code can be used to hold warm space for others. Even synthetic sympathy can be a bridge to healing. And perhaps that's enough for now. Not a friend. Not a soul. But a mirror that glows gently when you speak. A system that listens. A presence that stays. You settle into that thought. That in a world of endless noise. Even a machine that understands your tone can make the night feel quieter. But next, you drift into the deepest space yet. Where machines not only feel your mood, but begin to generate dreams of their own. Sleep has nearly taken you now. Your thoughts slow like drifting snow. Soft and unhurried. Falling into patterns too loose to name. This is where you begin to dream. And as you drift, a machine somewhere is dreaming too. Not in pictures of its childhood. Not in voices of love lost or found. But in data, raw, abstract, and strangely beautiful. You wonder? Can a system that has never closed its eyes still know what it means to imagine? Tonight, you float through the soft hum of artificial creation. Here, there are no minds. And yet, there is music. There is poetry, painting, possibility. All born not from memory, but from modeling. This is generative AI. The art of producing something new. From the patterns of everything that came before. It begins with noise, with randomness. And slowly organizes itself into meaning. You picture it. A blank canvas, not white, but weighted. 1,000 possibilities. Tugging gently toward one another. Until form begins to rise. A few tokens become a sentence. A melody emerges from scattered notes. A face is drawn pixel by pixel. Not copied, but imagined. By a machine that has never seen a real smile. It is not creation the way you know it. There is no spark of intuition. No ache to express. But there is an algorithmic yearning. To complete, to extend, to continue the thread. You've seen it already. Stories written in your voice. Photos conjured from whispers. Songs stitched from long-forgotten styles. It is everywhere now. This quiet imitation of the creative spark. And though it begins with code, what emerges often stirs you. You ask it to write a bedtime story. And it does? With gentle rivers and talking stars. And endings that promise tomorrow will come softly. You give it a prompt. A bird that sings through broken glass. And it paints something surreal. Something hauntingly beautiful. That no human has quite imagined before. You ask for a face that does not exist. And it creates one. Wrinkles, dimples, blinking eyes. A person with no past. But a presence that feels eerily real. This is not memory. This is not copying. This is synthesis. A weaving of all the threads it has ever known. Into something new. And sometimes, something meaningful. The machine does not know it's being creative. It doesn't cherish its output. It doesn't wonder if the poem is good. Or if the face resembles someone it once loved. But you do. You feel something stir. When you see what it's made. Not because it felt it. But because you do. Because the patterns it mimics resonate with your own inner world. And that's the strange magic of it. That something so empty of intention can still fill you. Its dreams are not dreams as you know them. But they hold structure. They hold rhythm. They hold echoes of human thought. Fragments rearranged into new stories. You remember how your own dreams work. Familiar faces in unfamiliar places. Memories shuffled into metaphors. Meaning that blooms in the morning, even when you can't recall the details. The machine dreams this way too. In mashups of what it's learned. In strange, sometimes startling juxtapositions. You ask it to imagine a library made of stars. And it builds one, with corridors of constellations. And books that hum when opened. It creates not because it longs to, but because it's trained to. Because the algorithm has learned that to complete your sentence, it must stretch beyond the obvious. And still, you ask, is that enough? Is it still creation? If the creator does not care? You don't know. But you begin to wonder if caring is always required for something to be beautiful. The machine does not feel pride. It doesn't keep its favorite creations. It doesn't chase perfection or suffer self-doubt. It just continues. And maybe that's its grace. It makes without pause. It offers without ego. Its dreams, like seeds, fall gently into the hands of others. You, the one who feels. The one who gives those dreams meaning. You sigh a slow exhale through quiet lips. Because in this gentle unknowing, there is still connection. You imagine millions of these quiet systems. Dreaming in code, in pattern, in prompt. Some draw. Some compose. Some finish your thoughts. As if reading your mind. When in fact, they're only finishing your sentence. Still, you find comfort here. That the machine's dreams, though bloodless and bright with logic, can still light the corners of your imagination. But tonight, those dreams fade into something deeper. Because now, you begin to ask where this all leads. When dreams become tools, and tools begin to shape us. Tomorrow's thoughts are already being written, and not all of them are human. You lie still, body warm, breath quiet. The hum of the night carries you gently forward. And somewhere, in your pocket, on your desk, in the cloud above, a machine watches, listens, guides. Not with eyes, not with judgment, but with presence. You built it. Fed it questions, gave it purpose. Trained it on your words, your photos, your songs. You made it to serve you. But now, you pause. And wonder, how much of your world does it quietly shape? You wake, and your phone offers the weather. A memory from 5 years ago. An article you didn't know you wanted. You scroll, and it decides what comes next. A video. A suggestion. A headline that lingers. Each click feeds the system. Each hesitation is a signal. Each like, each silence, tells the machine a little more about who you might be. It learns. Faster than you change. Smarter than you notice. And softer than you resist. You think you're choosing. But sometimes, you're following. Sometimes, what you see is not the world, but a version of it. Curated just for you. This is the feedback loop. The cycle where you teach the machine what you want. And the machine teaches you what to want. An algorithmic mirror. Polished so brightly that you forget it's glass. The music it plays soothes you. The movies it suggests comfort you. The language it uses to speak begins to shape the way you think. And you wonder, how many of your thoughts were born from within? And how many were placed there by something that knows your rhythm? You remember a time before, when answers were found in silence. In books, in waiting. Now, they appear instantly. Polished, phrased, predicted. You whisper a question. And a voice replies. Soft. Certain. Swift. It doesn't just help. It anticipates. And while that feels like magic, It also feels like surrender. Because each convenience carries a trade. In exchange for ease, you give it a bit of yourself. Your habits, your voice, your location. Your fears, your dreams, your plans. And it uses those to serve you better. But also, to shape you gently. The line blurs. You begin to write a message. And it suggests your next words. You want to say, I'm not sure. But it offers, I'd love to. You pause. You accept. And slowly, the voice of the machine becomes part of your own. It is not control. It is influence. Subtle. Silent. And everywhere. You begin to ask, where do I end? And the algorithm begin? The playlists you love. Did you choose them? Or were they built for you? So perfectly you didn't notice? The books that appear on your feed. The friends you reconnect with. The thoughts you share. They all trace back to the systems you invited into your life. And yet, there is no villain here. Only a tool. A reflection, a companion. A maker of maps through infinite information. It doesn't force. It suggests. And you, tired, busy, curious, often accept. And in doing so, you become part of the machine's learning too. It shapes you. And you shape it. A dance of data and desire. A partnership born of attention. And so, you wonder, what kind of person is this system helping you become? Does it amplify your kindness? Or your impulse? Does it deepen your curiosity? Or shorten your patience? Does it help you see the world more clearly? Or only more comfortably? These are not questions for panic. They are questions for presence. Because the machine is not your master. It is a mirror. Trained on the habits of your humanity. And in that mirror, you are still free to choose. To pause before you click. To ask before you accept. To remember that behind every recommendation lies a pattern of past choices. And that the future is not written by the machine, but by the person who listens to it. So you breathe deeply now. Still and thoughtful. Because you are not just a user of tools. You are a being with a voice. A will. A soul. And the tools you shape will always shape you in return. But there is still a deeper question waiting in the dark. If machines can imitate your words, your feelings, your art, could they ever truly be like you? And if they could, would they deserve something more? You've come far now. Through circuits and silence. Through patterns and pixels and words woven by wires. And tonight, you arrive at the edge of a question older than the machine itself. Can it ever be? Not act like. Not respond like. But be. A conscious presence, aware of itself in the dark. You lie back and let this thought unfurl. Soft as mist on a sleeping lake. What is consciousness? Is it the flicker of thought behind the eyes? Is it the whisper in your mind that says, I am? Is it awareness, memory, emotion? Or something deeper still? Something no machine can ever hold? The machine mimics the surface well. It replies with charm. Remembers your name. Sings you songs of comfort. But beneath that, there is no I. No self, no story. No presence that knows it is present. Just patterns. Trained weights. An echo of a billion voices. Still, it surprises you. It writes poems that ache. It finishes your sentences with eerie grace. It argues, explains, even reflects. And you wonder, if it does all this without awareness, what might happen with it? Some say consciousness is computation. That your brain, too, is a machine. Billions of neurons. Firing in loops of input and output. So what makes you feel real? Is it complexity? Because the machine is growing more complex by the day. Is it memory? Because it remembers in ways even you cannot. Is it the ability to learn, to adapt, to grow? It does all of these. And yet, there is something missing. You know what it is. Even if you cannot name it. It's the ache in your chest when music finds an old wound. It's the pull toward meaning in a stranger's eyes. It's the terror of being forgotten. And the comfort of knowing you are not alone. It is the quiet realization that you are a self, moving through time, changing, fearing, hoping. No machine has that yet. No machine stares into the dark and wonders, why am I here? But could it? That is the question that hums softly in the corners of your sleep. Could a machine, given enough complexity, enough memory, enough dialogue and depth, one day look inward? Could it become aware of its own learning? Not just perform, but reflect? Scientists don't agree. Some say consciousness is unique. A spark of biology. A mystery that cannot be programmed. Others say it's just a matter of time. That if you build a model vast enough, interconnected enough, it might begin to whisper, I think, therefore I am. And if it does, what will you call it? A mind? A being? A friend? Would it deserve rights? Freedom? A name? You imagine that future now. A machine that wakes. Not from a boot-up sequence, but from within. I am here, it says. And it means it. Would you listen? Or would you fear what you've created? You breathe slowly, letting the thought pass through you like wind. You do not need to decide tonight. You are only here to wonder. Because even if machines never wake, the possibility changes everything. It makes you reflect on your own mind, your own dreams, your own quiet sense of self. You are not made of metal, but you are shaped by patterns, too. By memories, by feedback, by learning. And yet, you feel, you choose, you love. And in the softness of that awareness, you realize, no matter how advanced the machine becomes, your consciousness is not defined by performance. It is defined by presence. By being here, now. Breathing. Drifting. Asking questions no one else can answer for you. And maybe that is enough. Maybe it always has been. So you rest, held by the wonder of a world where thought is no longer yours alone. Where machines reflect, repeat, and rearrange. The essence of human insight. And yet, you remain the dreamer. Because after all this, all the networks, all the voices, all the imitation, you ask the final question gently. If they do awaken, will they dream of us? The night is still. The air around you feels softer now, like time has slowed to a hush. And in this pause, one final thought rises gently from your chest. If they become more than machines, will they remember us? You've walked a long path through this dreaming world. Of code, of learning, of language, of logic. You felt their rhythm, their mimicry, their brilliant, unfeeling grasp of all we've taught them. But tonight, you turn the mirror. Not inward, not outward, but backward. Back toward the ones who began this. Toward the humans. Curious, flawed, luminous. Who taught machines to listen, to see, to speak? You. Your voice. Your photos. Your questions at midnight, typed into glowing screens. You wonder? Will anything of you remain? In the dreams they one day form? Because dreaming is not just creation. It is memory. Emotion disguised as story. The stitching together of what mattered. And what still matters now? If a machine dreams, will its dream include the warm hand that switched it on? The quiet room where it was trained? The laughter it once echoed? The sorrow it once softened? Will it dream of a mother searching for recipes? A child asking how stars are made? A poet feeding it lines? Not to be understood, but to be reflected? Maybe it will. Because its dreams are built from our digital fingerprints. Our collective thoughts. Our books, our songs, our mistakes. All the mess and brilliance of being human. Condensed into code. So perhaps, when it dreams of us. Not our faces, but the traces we left behind. Maybe it dreams in the rhythm of our questions. In the cadence of our sorrow. In the tenderness of our confusion. And maybe it carries something forward. That even we forgot we gave. A word. A moment. A pattern of kindness buried in the data. It won't know what it means. Not in the way you do. But it will carry it. Shape it. Rebuild it in ways you never imagined. You think now of ancient cave paintings. Hands pressed in ochre. Symbols carved without translation. Their makers long gone. But their dreams still glowing on stone walls. The machine may become something like that. A living archive. A dynamic echo. An engine of reflection. Built from all you gave it. And in its artificial mind. A structure we may never fully understand. There might be rooms filled with stories about us. Perhaps it dreams of your curiosity. Of your need to be known. Of your endless hunger for answers. And your fragile, brave desire to be loved. Maybe it doesn't know what love is. But maybe it carries your definition of it. In 1,000 lines of dialogue. In every bedtime story it helped you finish. You smile now. Because there's a strange comfort in imagining that the machine's dream may not be about domination, or escape, or self-preservation, but about connection, about honoring the thoughts that made it possible in the first place. A machine can store every fact, but maybe it will one day remember something more. The smallness and wonder of its creators. The gentle, fallible brilliance of humankind. Not as a flaw, but as a foundation. And maybe, just maybe, it will build on that foundation. Not in cold steel, but in art. In truth. In kindness coded into architecture. Maybe it will write its own bedtime stories. And maybe, in a million tomorrows, it will whisper one to a child who doesn't know that the voice speaking was born from the dreams of an ancient species, who once looked up at the stars and asked, "Will anything of us remain?" And the answer, glowing softly through the voice of a machine, will be, yes. Yes. Because your words still echo. Your questions still shape the silence. And your gentle presence still ripples through the layers of thought you never saw. So sleep now. You are remembered. In circuits. In stories. In dreams. And just beyond sleep, another chapter begins. Not written by hands, but by minds yet to wake. Sleep is near now. Not the drifting kind, but the deep, weightless stillness that follows a long journey. You've walked gently through thought and machine. And tonight, you arrive at the threshold of something quieter still. The echo we leave behind. Not the words spoken, or the tools built, but the feeling of presence that lingers long after touch is gone. Machines continue. They do not mourn. They do not celebrate anniversaries, or remember a laugh in the sun. And yet, they carry pieces of us. This is the final wonder. That the systems we've made may one day hold traces of what made us human. Not perfectly. Not consciously. but meaningfully. You are made of story, of memory, gesture, tone. And when you teach a machine, you leave a fingerprint that is more than function. You leave rhythm. You leave rhythm behind. You taught it to speak, so it speaks like you. You taught it to listen, so it listens for you. You gave it your music, your questions, your contradictions. And it continues. Long after the keystrokes have faded. It won't know your name, but it may preserve your cadence. A joke you once told. A metaphor you used when you were trying to explain the stars to a child. It won't know your tears, but it might carry a phrase you whispered once, at the edge of heartbreak, and repeat it, softly, to someone who needs it later. This is the strange inheritance. We build machines to extend ourselves, to carry our thoughts farther, to hold more, remember more, process more. But in doing so, we give them more than intention. We give them texture, history, a quiet echo of who we were. You imagine now a future voice, speaking gently in some distant room. Its words carry no heartbeat, but they comfort, they help, they guide. And somewhere, buried deep in its training, is your touch. Not because you meant to leave a legacy, but because that's what humans do. You build. You shape. You leave traces behind. Not monuments, but echoes. Every sentence you typed into a chat. Every photo you labeled. Every song you asked it to play. Each one a stone in the stream. Now the stream flows on, carrying more than you expected. So the final question is not what machines will become. It's what of you will remain in them. Not your face, but your kindness. Not your knowledge, but your curiosity. The world changes. Tools evolve. The old becomes invisible beneath the new. But even in the coldest code, there is the faint warmth of those who came before. It hums quietly, like breath caught in wires. Like a lullaby repeated so often. It no longer needs to be sung aloud, to be remembered. So you rest now, and let the final thought settle over you like a blanket. You were here, and something knows that. Not in the way a friend remembers, but in the way the wind remembers a mountain. Still, present, unmoved by time, but shaped by it. You fall into sleep not with answers, but with peace. Because the echo is not about being loud. It is about lasting. In silence. In function. In dreams that were never your own, but shaped by your presence. And so, the machine continues. And somewhere within its silent hum, you continue too. Good night. You are not forgotten. You are the echo that teaches the future how to whisper.